Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gator Truth. I'm Daniel, and on this episode, we're going to look back at the Gators' 40-21 win over the Florida State Seminoles. What a fun afternoon, evening, and night in the swamp. You just got to love beating the Seminoles after such a bad year. To just come out and not just beat the Noles, but to win handily. As I posted, some of you probably saw it on X, but I did say, we decked the Noles with Baugh's 38 carries, 266 yards, and 2 TDs. But anyways, lots of fun with that. In fact, before the game kicked off, guy in front of me, known him for years, turns around and asks me, do you think Baugh makes it to 1,000 yards? And I said, to be honest, I'm not sure because, we've seen things like Ricky Pearsall get so close to 1,000 receiving yards and not get it and only get like one touch. Or, we've seen this year, since he needed 96 or something yards, we've seen this year him having great first halves and then nothing in the second half through various reasons, including the defense wasn't threatened by the pass at all. So they're not feeling threatened by the pass. Well, they're going to stack the box. We saw it against Miami. We saw it against A&M and several other schools. I believe Kentucky, he was also shut down in the second half overall. So I wasn't sure, but then he goes and gets it in the first half. And, of course, at the end of the game, scores a touchdown, gets called back on a penalty. And I said to my brother, that's just going to be more yards for Baugh. And sure enough, next play goes in for the touchdown, runs off the defender. What a great night. And I bet if you asked anyone, do you see Jadan Baugh in this game with this team the way that it's played, 2 of the last 3 previous games, do you see Jadan Baugh putting up a number 2 all-time day performance and 266 yards? And I guarantee you no one would say, oh yeah, Jadan Baugh is going to, put up an all-time performance against the Seminoles. They may have thought it was a good game. Heck, maybe on 150 yards, but 266, including 7 yards a carry. That's just ridiculous, especially when you consider several of those carries, touchdown runs, where he could have gotten a lot more yards for that yards per carry. Just simply amazing. Heck, DJ Lagway himself, 3 carries, which 2 of the carries were sacks. But 3 carries, only -1 yard. And with 2 of them being sacks, that tells me the line did well. And of course, just all sorts of fun. One last little poke before we really talk about the offense, although we've already started, is, Florida State, every time we got a first down, kept playing this song and saying the lyrics of First and 10. And I don't know why they were celebrating our first downs, but they were. But it was an oddly familiar tune, because it reminded me last year when they played a similar tune and they sang about their record for last year, 2 and 10. And I don't know why they celebrate our first downs. I don't know why they celebrated 2 and 10, but hey, you do you, Seminoles. You do you. But anyways, getting back to the offense, or let's get into the offense, although I've really talked about a lot. Run the ball, we always talk about being our first key. And of course, Jadan Baugh, we talked about 266 yards, 7 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, long of 22. DJ Lagway also 62.5% of his passes completed, 14 of 24 for 168 yards. And over 10 yards per completion, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and that interception was not good. He did have 1 or 2 completions that he had that were dangerous balls and finally got it picked off. But I will say this, and my brother said the same thing. Why do we even have the easiest route to pick off in the playbook? And that is, of course, a hitch or stop or whatever you want to call it route to the far side of the field, because that's like a 40, 50 yard throw where the defender is probably 3 or 4 yards off the receiver. Not the best idea for sure. But with that said, Lagway also made some excellent passes in the game. In fact, one of his incompletions was a pass to Vernell Brown, which he dropped in the end zone on what we thought was a touchdown. The opening drive ended up with a field goal. If Brown doesn't fully turn around and maybe continues running his route just a little, then he definitely gets it. But it is what it is. Point is, solid, not spectacular day from DJ Lagway, but definitely gave us enough to get us the win. Jadan Baugh, of course, coming in, doing well. We talked about it. Again, 38 carries, 260 yards, and 2 TDs. There was no world, like, honestly, where I thought going into this game, I thought we could win for sure, but I didn't see us putting up 440 yards per off, on offense. I didn't see Jadan Baugh, again, I already mentioned it, putting up the number 2 rushing performance in a game all time. I mean, this is just not what we expected at all. Expected some good things, but definitely did not fully expect this. So good on the team. Definitely lots of happiness when you can pull this off, running for 272 yards as a team. And then receiving wise, J. Michael Sturdivant went out, with a pretty good day, 3 receptions, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Had some nice catches. Vernell Brown, 4 catches. Aiden Mizell, 3 catches. Heck, we even saw Tony Livingston, who has been much maligned by some Gator fans. I won't say that's been totally undeserved at times, but he even got in on the action with a 9-yard reception for a touchdown. Gotta love that on senior day. Also on senior day, Spirito went out there and he was in, I believe, on the first touchdown run. I don't know if he's in on both on the 4th downs at the end of the game, because of course we got the penalty when Baugh went in the first time and they ran in the second time. But I know I'm quite sure I saw Spirito get into the game. Nice to see him get in, get some playing time, but also not, nice to see his playing time not take away from guys like Mizell and others when the game is on the line in a big game against teams like Miami. Speaking of senior day, let's go ahead. Let's cut it over to defense now, as I'll try and go through this pretty quickly, get you onto your holidays. You know how we like to keep this a shorter podcast for you, as there are plenty of long form Gator podcasts you can listen to. But with that said, Florida defense did what they've done a lot of the year, and that is, allow a ton of yards. Now, I expected this. I talked about how Florida State in yardage was one of the top 10 teams in yards. So I expected them to be able to move the ball quite a bit. 407 yards allowed, 240 passing, and 167 on the ground. Now, some of that was letting Castellanos run near the end of the first quarter or first half, sorry, and then a few other things as well. Like I believe at one point he had a run, I think it was near the end of the first half, where he got the first down and then basically ran straight to the sideline, but from midfield or close or from the hash mark or something. And I said to my brother, why don't you just take a knee? You save yourself several seconds rather than all the time it took you giving yourself up, running out of bounds to get the clock stopped, because the clock stops on a first down in the final 2 minutes. Probably you would come out equal, if not ahead. But hey, whatever, good on him. I think that left Florida State with enough time for one play, maybe, rather than two, where they could have tried to get into field goal range and kick a field goal. And so good job on the defense there. Now, I talked about DJ Lagway's interception that came right after Caleb Banks gets a fumble recovery on senior day. Talked about how wasn't the best looking defensive performance last week for him to come back, and it was, Tennessee ran and did whatever they wanted to us. But this week coming in and really, really looking well with a tackle for loss and with recovering that fumble. Granted, we gave the ball pretty much right back, but it did keep a 2-for-1 opportunity away from the Seminoles and kept us ahead at the half and ahead in game theory, because we're getting the ball to start the second half. And then another just fun thing, Miles Graham, 8 tackles, 1 sack. Bryce Thornton coming in with 8 tackles, a sack, and I believe his sack was the strip sack that got Caleb Banks that fumble. Jaden Woods gets a sack. Brendan Bett, who, I've maligned on here for many, many dumb things he's done throughout the year, he got a sack. And then we also saw just some other fun things. Generally good play by our secondary. Now, yes, they gave up 240 yards. Some of that's bound to happen, but I will say this. You're playing guys like Javari Flowers. You're playing guys like Ben Hanks III, Lagonza Hayward, who had a nice hit. Granted, we gave up some yards, but boy, that guy paid for it. They checked for targeting, did not call it. These guys are true freshmen coming in, getting experience that may be pivotal going into next year. Alfonso Allen also, having a decent game and really playing a role that we hoped he would on senior day. So good on him. And speaking of this secondary, Ben Hanks the third, getting the pick on the last play of the game, could have gone down, could have done whatever he wanted, but I loved his idea of, what, my dad in the SEC championship game 1994 picks off Arkansas's option pitch, takes it all the way for a touchdown, almost 100 yards. Maybe I can take this pick against FSU, almost 100 yards to end the game. And maybe that's not what he's thinking. And quite frankly, I don't care whether it was or not. The point is, I love that he tried going for it. And it just made me smile. And for a second, it looked like it might happen. And I was like, heck yeah. And I will say this, definitely good to see these young guys get in, get experience, especially with the injury concerns that have happened in our defensive backfield throughout the year, whether it's Devin Moore, whether it's you know, Monty McClain, or why am I drawing a blank? Aaron Gates, and of course Bryce Thornton was out. Castells had some issues, so you're getting a lot of time for these young guys, and that's experience that'll help carry on to next year. Things that maybe they wouldn't have gotten, and also things that those experiences of going against Tennessee, going against a good Florida State offense. These are experiences that will make them better for the future, especially now that we know we have a defensive head coach coming in and Jon Sumrall. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. And before we do, I do want to talk about, Florida's special teams. And there's been a lot of times where as Billy Napier would call it, the game changer unit have not really been game changers. However, in this game, in many ways, they were, and I've got to give them credit for that. I mean, Tommy Doman, I had to laugh. I was like, man, his 71-yard punt might have been the most disappointing 70-plus yard punt since I believe it was Eric Wilbur in the 2004 Tennessee game, or 2003, last time they won in the Swamp before last week, where he had a 75-yarder that I believe went into the end zone. It's like, geez. And then Doman, who's really been a mixed bag this year, hits a 71-yarder. Guy gets to it and just somehow doesn't keep it out of the end zone, which was unfortunate, but what a punt. And averaging 62 yards for those playing the home game, that would mean that he had a 53-yarder. Both are great punts. And then let's talk Trey Smack. Trey Smack hitting a 54-yard field goal on senior day and taking over, I believe, the number one all-time slot for Florida for kicks made over 50 yards. Good for Trey Smack. And somehow I just had to laugh at this because I think Trey Smack has been a great kicker overall, but for some reason, it just seemed fitting that on that last extra point, Trey Smack misses it. I don't know why. Because he has been overall reliable. This is not, and I don't mean to bash this guy, this is not, Chris Hetland in 2006 that was hit and miss. This is not some of the other kickers that we've had that have missed some big kicks. I believe it's Collins Cooper, Tennessee 98. Someone can correct me if you want to look up that miss. But yeah, but still, it just tickled me. I'm like, this is just perfect for the way this era ends, for Trey Smack to miss the extra point. But with that said, I think he's been solid. I'm happy that he owns a Florida record. I mean, when you think we've had guys like Caleb Sturgis, Austin Hardin, Pinheiro, and why am I blanking? Of course, I'm going to blank on our guy from the Dan Mullen era, Evan McPherson. And I don't know why I blanked on that, but you think you've had these guys that have hit some long shots, and somehow Trey Smack, and he's been good from over 50. In fact, sometimes you could say he's been better from 50 than he is from any other distance on the field, and maybe statistics will bear that out. And forgive me, I didn't look that up. But anyways, good on him. End of an era, not just with him, but with the whole Billy Napier crew and experience. And bear with me, I'm a little under the weather if you cannot tell. But with that said, real quick thoughts, and we'll get more on this on later episode. But Jon Sumrall, this is being recorded Monday night after his intro presser. I've got to say this. My stance, as with any coach, is I want to wait and see who he hires. I've said the next coach needs to be focused on a high-powered passing attack. We've ignored that for 15 years. I don't think any idea that we're going to ignore that is going to be a good idea. I don't think fifth time's the charm. We can throw 2020 as an aberration. So 14 of the last 15 years. But he's talked about at Florida, explosive play calling or explosive offense is mandatory. So we will see how much he sticks to that, because you can talk a big game, but really it comes down to that. I think he's going to do wonders for this defense. I loved his press conference. I loved I believe it was JD Piquel who basically said he didn't just win his press conference. He was up by 35 in the second half for the JV team and a running clock. Really impressive press conference. And anyone who's listened to this, podcast anytime for the last 4 years knows that I don't really get too worked up on the press conferences. But I've got to say, I absolutely loved a lot of what he had to say. The question is, does he back it up? I do love that one of his quotes is, "This is not an 8-year plan. I want to win now." And truthfully, this guy's been a head coach, never had less than a 10-win season. Granny's never been in a league as deep as the SEC. With that said, the schedule does set up favorably next year for 8-9 wins, and we'll talk about that as it gets closer. Of course, we need to see what he does with the portal and recruiting and roster retention and all the things you've got to do. But again, these are things that are for down the line, and we can talk about, well, Auburn's rebuilding with a new coach next year. We've got them. Vandy's totally rebuilding. They're at home. Ole Miss. Pete Golding is taking over. Are they going to be as good as they were under Lane Kiffin? And they're rebuilding some. And then, we go down the line, and there are really a lot of opportunities on that schedule. Mizzou, how good are they going to be next year? And how really good were they this year? And of course, you have Texas, who we beat, and we'll be looking for revenge. And we can go through it. But I do think next year we should be able to count on beating Campbell. We should count on being able to beat, I believe it's FAU we play to start the season. And then we honestly, just from 10,000 feet, we should be able to beat, FSU. And then all I'm really asking is for going 5-4, 6-3 in the SEC. But again, that's from 10,000 feet. That could all change, tomorrow when we find out X, Y, and Z happens. Point is, I'm saying all this to say, dang impressive press conference. Now I want to see what he's actually bringing to this team. I don't think that what we see out of Tulane will necessarily be what we see here. And of course, one of his quotes, if you watch the press conference, was something to the effect of, each school needs different things. And he definitely referenced, Florida's history with explosive offenses. Danny Werfel heavily involved, Urban Meyer involved in this decision. So maybe he's like, yeah, you know what? You guys were part of that. Let's roll. So we will see. And then also, this is being released on Tuesday, December 2nd. Currently scheduled, I will be talking to a Tulane podcast on Tuesday, hopefully for release on Wednesday, about Jon Sumrall and what they think about him at Tulane, the good, the bad, the ugly. I will probably ask the questions about, the offense, and also talk about, hey, things we may not know. Like, to my knowledge, I've seen Tulane pretty much replace almost their entire team this year. 65 new players is a number I've seen on X. I will try and verify how much that is, because if you don't know, football has like 85 scholarship players. So if you're replacing 3/4 of your team and you're still going 10-2 and in your conference championship game Friday night, 8 o'clock on ABC, that's something to at least look forward to. But again, it comes down to what else we see from them. Talk is good, track record is good, but in the end of the day, it's just coming here and winning. But with that said, again, Florida over Florida State, fun night in the swamp, and great way to cap it off, especially to cap it off with keeping FSU out of a bowl game, forcing them to have a losing record misery, just like we have, and also Mike Norvell currently 0-2 against Florida interim coaches. How great is that? With that said, thank you all for listening. And as always, go Gators.